As week 3 of the federal election campaign kicks off, new polling is showing that Conservatives are inching back closer to the Liberals. These are new numbers out this morning. Nanos Research's latest poll has the Liberals leading with 42.8%. The Conservatives are in second, 37.7%. The NDP have fallen further to 7.9%. And to unpack what these numbers mean, we begin week 3 with Nick Nanos from Ottawa, founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. Good morning.
Hey, Anne-Marie.
So let's talk about this narrowing gap. You've linked it to the fact that we are hearing less than we did last week about President Trump. How does that factor in?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, remember last week when we were chatting, it was during kind of the Liberation Day, Donald Trump, Canada responding to tariffs and all that kind of stuff. And what happened was at that particular point in time, the Liberals opened up as big as a 10 to 11 point advantage. Now, Liberation Day is behind us. Thank you.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing is that with Trump not in the news, what we're seeing is Canadians seem to be focused on other issues, jobs in the economy, the price of living, housing, all that kind of stuff. And as a result, with the absence of Donald Trump, what we're seeing is a narrowing of the race from 10 to 11 points to 5 percentage points. We have to remember the margin of accuracy for the survey is plus or minus 2. So it's now become a horse race, Anne-Marie.
So can you unpack that, Nick, for us a little bit further? But what does taking Trump out of the equation do for our Canadian leaders?
Well, the thing is that what we do know from research that we did with CTV News and the Globe and Mail is that when we asked Canadians who they thought benefited from tensions in the bilateral relationship, that Canadians by a margin of 3 to 4 to 1 thought that the Liberals would benefit. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Mark Carney not only gets coverage as the leader of the Liberal Party, but he also gets coverage as the Prime Minister, as the current Prime Minister. And, you know, the thing is when that happens, it's a significant advantage for him because he gets more coverage. Take that out of the equation, and basically what we have is a level playing field where the two frontrunners are now fighting it out on issues, and as a result, the race is tightening up.
Yeah, this is a more sort of traditional campaign that we're used to seeing. Excuse me, let's start with the Conservatives. Pierre Poilievre pitching his domestic policy announcements as a way of standing up to the United States. Let's talk about that strategy. Is it working for him?
Well, you know, the thing is, at 38%, we have to remember, Anne-Marie, Stephen Harper won elections with 36%. So 38 is actually a good number. 38 is usually enough to actually win an election. But with the collapse of the New Democrats, where they've gone from the mid-teens to 8%, with the drop in the Green Party and the consolidation between the Liberals and the Conservatives, 38% is not enough to win an election in this environment because it's a two-horse race. So the big question is what can Pierre Poilievre do in order to kind of drive his numbers from a policy perspective? And also, if we look at those preferred prime minister numbers, not as great for Pierre Poilievre compared to Mark Carney. About 50% of Canadians give Mark Carney a tip of the hat as to who they would prefer as prime minister. Pierre Poilievre's trailing 18 points. He's back at 32. So he's got to focus on his personal brand.
Yeah, and when you put it into that context, remember when we were talking about he was ahead at double-digit numbers, now behind?
Wow.
At least in that one specific poll. Let's talk about the Liberals. Well, the race between the Conservatives and the Liberals is narrowing. The race between the leaders for preferred prime minister is not, as you point out. Liberal leader Mark Carney is ahead of Pierre Poilievre by more than 17 points. We see that gap widening for preferred prime minister. Let's talk about that number, though, on the bottom left, and that is the drop in support for the NDP. How does that factor in?
You know, the thing is the drop in support of the NDP has helped the Liberals, right? Because that's strategic voting. You know, at around 8% or thereabouts, the NDP are at a historic low that they haven't seen in an election since 2000, 25-year low for the New Democrats. Very bad news. And even on the preferred prime minister number, Anne-Marie, Jagmeet Singh, only 4% of Canadians would think that they would prefer him as prime minister. So he's trailing his party. So what Pierre Poilievre also needs is for Jagmeet Singh to do well. He needs to split the progressive vote in order for the Conservatives to pop up the middle. That was part of the winning franchise, especially under Stephen Harper, and that's what Pierre Poilievre needs right now.
You know, in these days, Nick, when everything is changing so fast, it feels like 2 weeks ago to talk about last Friday. But when you were on CTV's Power Play on Friday, you highlighted your seat projections showing that both Green Party co-leader Elizabeth May and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh are both at risk of losing in their own ridings. So set this up for us. What would that mean for Canada's political landscape?
Well, it would mean change. And, you know, let's face it, the Liberals have already changed their leader. If the Conservatives don't win, that will put Pierre Poilievre's leadership at risk. I think for the New Democrats, unless there's some kind of massive change, Jagmeet Singh's leadership will be at risk. And, even for the Green Party, they're probably going to have to relook things. And for the Bloc, the Bloc are getting squeezed here too. So, I think what we're looking at is a situation where after this federal election, how about this for a prediction, Anne-Marie?
Okay. After
this election, we will change a number of federal party leaders. It'll be a bit of a reset politically, I think, for a number of the parties.
Nick Nanos, founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. I always appreciate talking to you on a Monday morning because you give me perspective of what I need to watch for the rest of the week. Nick, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.